So you've weighed your options and you finally landed on social work. So what does the first year in the social work major at the master's level look like? That's what we're going to talk about today. This video is really going to dive into the 3 biggest takeaways from each of the 6 courses I took over this past year. I'm also going to link another video right here, which has to do with the first semester that I had in social work. So I hope some of the information is helpful to you. If so, please don't forget to drop a comment down below because I'd love to hear from you. So the master's degree program that I was accepted for is in the northeastern part of the United States. It may vary country by country, I'm not sure. So it can either be done in 1, 2, or 3, sometimes even 4 years. I opted for the 3-year pathway because I am a busy mother. I have 3 children and I'm returning to school a little bit later in life. And because I'm doing the 3-year program instead of the 2-year program, I didn't actually have my internship, or in the field of social work, they call it field placement. I didn't actually have that during my first year. In graduate school, 9 credits is actually considered full-time. I took 3 courses each semester that were worth 3 credits each. So I was considered a full-time student even without my field placement. So the 3 courses I took in the fall were human oppression, analysis of social welfare policy and advocacy, and research methods for social work. And then during my second semester, I took advanced research program evaluation, human behavior in the social environment, which is a micro and macro theories class, and human rights in social work, which was an elective. Every other course that I took besides human rights and social work was required for my major. Let's start with human oppression. I think the 3 main takeaways for human oppression: first, recognizing my own privilege. And it's funny because I definitely didn't grow up in what I would consider a privileged environment. I was raised by a single mother. She did a lot of the child rearing on her own, sometimes working 2 jobs just to support my family. And so the idea of privilege kind of made me feel a little icky because I grew up in a lower middle class household and I really didn't consider the way I grew up to be privileged. But when you go through this course, you really start to recognize the privilege that you have and how to use that in order to help others. The second key takeaway for human oppression was recognizing my internal biases. Part of that is growing up in a small town and not really being exposed to people from different walks of life. You get into things like colonialism, genocide, religion, and other biases. Human oppression really opened my eyes to the way I see the world and got me to keep my biases in check. The third takeaway for human oppression is learning to have cultural humility. So as I said before, learning about other cultures, you really need to keep your own opinions about that culture, about those beliefs in check. And what I mean by that is remaining curious about people from different walks of life with different beliefs from your own. And that can be difficult sometimes. And so just having a little bit of humility and saying, I don't know everything there is to know about everyone and every group of people. And just because I've met someone from a particular group of people doesn't mean that they represent all of that group. So the 3 main takeaways for research methods for social work are how to locate good studies. And there are different resources that my professor shared with us in terms of actually locating studies that are viable. The second key takeaway would be pros and cons to various research designs. And then the third key takeaway is how to write a basic research proposal. Now, I didn't actually carry out the research for this, but we did write a basic research proposal, and that was our big final project. This is the only course for the whole year where I had a formal exam for my midterm and my final. The 3 key takeaways for analysis of social welfare policy are: first, recognizing barriers that the clients that you might work with have. So for example, it could be something like poverty, or just the fact that they are not mobile and cannot vote or participate in institutional decisions. that affect their everyday life. Second, understanding how policy works, so the various steps that a bill needs to go through before it becomes a law, and understanding what stage it's in so you can actually affect change with policy. And the third key takeaway was advocacy strategy. Our final project was to come up with an advocacy strategy project, and we could either write a blog or an op-ed. An op-ed is an opposite the editorial, so it's an opinion piece, but it's based in fact. And so we needed to research a particular piece of policy that was either in process or in place and talk about how we would use that policy to advocate for a particular population. During my spring semester, I took advanced research program evaluation, and the three key takeaways for that first would be the importance of program evaluation in terms of evidence-based care. The only way to know if a program is really working is if it's being effectively evaluated. The second key takeaway is program fidelity and adherence. So this means evaluating whether employees are adhering to the program and how closely they are actually carrying out the program for what their initial goals were. The third key takeaway is how to actually carry out a program evaluation. During the entire semester, we talked about the outcome evaluation, which has to do with actual rates of change. But just as important to that is the process evaluation that happens throughout the program evaluation. And so this means checking in at regular intervals and making sure that people are satisfied with the care they're receiving. Not just at the end when there's not much you can do to change the program or alter it in order to help clients. For my human behavior in the social environment, which was a micro and macro theories class, we spent the entire semester talking about theories. The first key takeaway for my micro and macro theories course was the interplay between the micro and macro levels, interactions between the person and their environment, which is really what social work is in a nutshell. It has to do with how they're functioning, goodness of fit, various aspects of the interplay between close environments. So we're talking about like their home environment, where they're living, their family, and immediate environment versus macro. So we're talking like institutions, policy making, and other things that affect people's day-to-day lives. The second key takeaway from micro and macro theories were the various theorist viewpoints. Everyone has an opinion and everyone has a piece of the puzzle. And so the big picture was presenting everything from general systems theory, psychoanalytic theory, behaviorism, and many other more modern approaches to social work. For human rights and social work, this specific course I think should actually be required for the social work curriculum. If social work were to focus through a human rights lens rather than a human needs lens, it would actually empower people to recognize themselves as rights bearers. And so that would be my first key takeaway for that course, shifting from a needs-based approach to a rights-based approach. The second key takeaway from that course for me was the social constructionism theory, which essentially, if you're not familiar with it, it's that people make their own reality based on the experiences that they've had throughout their life. What you may think is right, wrong, moral, amoral, etc., is all shaped by the experiences and influences that you've had throughout your life. And they may be extremely different from someone else. And that doesn't mean that they're right, you're wrong, or vice versa. It just means that you've constructed your reality based on your own experiences. And that was very eye-opening for me. Sometimes I get caught up in moral discussions with peers, and it's easy to be distracted by your internal biases, which I did mention before, because it's so important to try to be objective when you're working with people that have very different viewpoints from your own. And then the third key takeaway from that course was how to navigate a third key takeaway for human rights and social work was how to navigate the Universal Declaration of Human Rights website, which is a tool that we use throughout the semester, including with our group project, which was one of the largest grading points in this course. My group focused on the school to prison pipeline because we were really interested in how that impacts education for people of color. And so the final for that course was writing a blog or an op-ed, and I chose to write a blog this time for this course. And my blog was about women and girls with disabilities navigating the healthcare system. And so I'm very interested, especially as a woman with a disability, and it's an invisible disability. If you're interested in that, check out my video right here where I talk about some of the complications of labor and delivery and pregnancy for people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and other connective tissue disorders. Like I said, I only had 2 formal exams, and they were for my first research methods class. My other classes were really heavy in paper writing. One of my courses this past semester had 3 written papers. Two of them were 8 to 10 pages long. So you are in for a lot of writing. You are in for some group work, a lot of research, and all of these are important to having an effective practice once you graduate. I mentioned my op-ed before, which was about the Equal Rights Amendment, and I'll be making content about the Equal Rights Amendment soon, so be sure to subscribe so you can check that out when it comes out. I also mentioned that I didn't do field this year, but I have been accepted to a field placement for the fall, and so I will be updating my YouTube page once I start that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope some of this information was helpful to you. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss any future videos. And good luck with your career in social work. Thank you.